what would you say to the people that, and I think this is usually people coming from a religious perspective, that would just say, don't tamper with, it's really the God versus science argument. Don't tamper with our God-given whatever. Now, I get it, you're not a believer, but what do you think is the best way to argue that point for someone that believes that humbly and truly?
I actually, because I was raised a Catholic and have studied the Bible extensively, and I have a degree in philosophy, but it's actually partially religion as well. And I would try to argue from the biblical point of view, which said, God is giving us these technologies. God, if you believe in God, is giving us this ability to do these things to ourselves. I think it's something that if we can do it, it was destined by that higher power. And so I say, why should you be afraid of technology that is part of God's world? Embrace it. It's just part of that system. And actually, this works really well. I mean, it doesn't work very well when I talk about the chip, because everyone thinks, oh, it's mark of the beast and this and that. And I get the Antichrist, comments so often.
Right.
But I think when you're talking about CRISPR genetic technology, if you say to somebody, I'm going to cure your child of leukemia with this technology, and that was God's plan all along to make your life better, then I think a lot of people say, you know what, I'm willing to accept that. I think if you talk about a fourth arm or some kind of horse body, that's when it goes too far.
Right.
But if you can use this stuff for the greater good, most people, doesn't matter how fundamental they are, especially when it concerns the health of loved ones, are going to be on board, and that's good.
Yeah, does that show you how sort of our brains and our hearts are sometimes just not connected, which the CRISPR is probably working on combining those things? Because that, sometimes I'll see some of these politicians that that are totally against a woman's right to choose, and I am not a lover of abortion, but I would allow the woman to choose what she wants to do. But at the same, they'll be against abortion, and then at the same time, it's like, at the end of the day, if their own daughter got raped, they would figure out a way for their daughter to get an abortion. So there's a disconnect between sort of what's going on intellectually and what's going on in the heart, and a lot of what you're talking about, I think, is combining those two things.
100%. And I think, what's happening is we are, as a species, improving our ability of reason. And that's something that is happening. We are actually...
Are we? This election year, I haven't been...
Okay, the election year aside. No, but we are slowly becoming a less religious society and a more reasonable society, I do believe. And I think when you look at some of the statistics, science and technology are infiltrating our lives enough to make us say, we really can't believe anymore in a Noah's Ark, because that just would have been sort of impossible. I know some people still do, but broadly speaking, most Christians wouldn't say, I'm going to firmly say I believe in that anymore. Right. They still may firmly believe in Jesus and whatnot. So we are growing, and I think the idea is to continue down that path and hope that one day we come to a society that is much more spiritual based, because I like spirituality. I think spirituality is great, without the fundamentalism. And that way we can see more clearly. We can have a reason-based spirituality that still incorporates all the elements of faith and whatever, without the ones that kind of create all the chaos in the world.
Yeah,
and that disconnect.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the book by Sam Harris, who's one of my favorite. Oh, the book's right there.
Yeah,
Sam Harris, Waking Up, a guide to
I quote it often.
Oh, there you go, a guide to spirituality without religion. So have a spiritual life. You're not against that for all the logic that you believe in. But not attached to the dogmatic stuff that can't be proven. So my last question to you, I think, is the big one about all this. And I'll slightly quote one of my favorite movies, Contact, when Matthew McConaughey, who plays a preacher in it, and they're trying to decide whether they're going to go to Vega, to the distant star or not. And he's talking about technology, and he was really fighting against it. He was saying, is all of this stuff making us happier? At the end of the day, you can eat quicker and you can talk to someone on the phone and all this stuff, but is it making us happier? Do you think that at the end of the day that our net happiness is actually any higher or lower than it was 200 years ago?
So, I'm a tough person to ask that question to, because I just don't put that much, credibility in happiness. I put it in much more satisfaction of something else, like what I make of my life. I really like work. Work for me is everything. You know, the passion of what I create with my hands, my career, those are the ways that I satisfy myself. Happiness is such, for me, a very nebulous term. Because, you know, having studied philosophy, there's this great, this great question that says, if you could be made 100% perfectly happy and put in a box and shot into space for eternity, would you do it? And almost nobody says that. Nobody wants to be perfectly happy because it goes against the core of value systems that we like to have, which is it's got to be a bit of pain and suffering and all this built in the system. But there's other avenues that we do pursue, like satisfaction of life and of our careers and families and relationships. So whether we're happy or not isn't the most important question. I would say we're probably not. We're probably less happy than we've been before. Not that dramatically much, but I mean, who at least in America, doesn't work a gazillion million hours, and I have mortgages and this and that, and the phone's never going off, I have kids and diapers to change, you know, I'm overwhelmed, to be honest with you. So happiness is not what I'm after, but in the end of the day, I do believe something's being accomplished, and that's a very deep sense of satisfaction. And I think that's what technology is also doing to us. We're evolving so far that we're realizing, wow, we are actually becoming more than human. We're becoming almost godlike. We're becoming these amazing entities that can not just discover the stars, but maybe even one day merge with the stars, become AI that spreads through the universe. And that is something that I think is incredibly enticing and incredibly, it really speaks to my heart on what's possible of the human being.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I thoroughly love this conversation because it's such a synthesis of the things that I love most, which are all this science stuff and future stuff and the political part. I like the science stuff a little more than the political part. But what do you say we do this every 2 years? We'll do this. I assume we can live forever at this point, right?
I think so.
You'll hook me up with some of that stuff?
I'll hook you up. I'll send you the tech.
Yeah, so we'll do this every 2 years for, say, 100 years and see where we're at.
Absolutely.
And go from there.
One day, you know, then we'll do like a little, you know, montage, and there'll be like the robot Zolt eventually. And then there's the little computer in front of you one day. He doesn't even have the body.
I assume we'll just be holograms
exactly.
at one point on different planets.
Yeah. No, I would love that. Yeah, no, that sounds great.
All right, very cool. So I want to thank Zoltan Istvan, and you can find out more about him and the Transhumanist Party at zoltanistvan.com.